A warm welcome to the 119th webinar of TechSpert webinar series, and these are the webinars organized as part of the knowledge sharing events that TechSpert organizes. And today's webinar is focused on the topic of steps that needs to be taken by the industry while preparing for an energy audit by our favorite speaker and a veteran in the subject, Mr. Ashok Sethuraman sir. And before we start the session, I will just read out the agenda for today. We'll start the session with a welcome note by our founder, Murugeshan sir. That will be followed by the keynote presentation by Ashok sir, and that will be followed by question and answer session and vote of thanks. TechSpert was found with a vision to organize the world's technology experts onto a single network to enable sharing of knowledge. And with that vision, we have had a stupendous 170 plus events which have been organized and run for the sake of knowledge sharing sessions, in which today stands the 119th online webinar that we have commenced. While thanking Murugeshan sir for his phenomenal contribution and dedication to run these programs and organize, I would request sir to start today's session with a welcome note. Murugeshan sir, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm very happy to welcome you all in this wonderful evening for the TechSpert Knowledge Webinar Series, webinar number 119. Today's subject is on steps need to be taken by the industry while preparing for an energy audit. So, today's topic is very unique and very important in terms of so many other things, but I would like to inform you few things. The energy audit, I consider particularly it's the preface for achievement of energy efficiency. I hope you will all agree with me. So a collaborative efforts are very much required from all the stakeholders and all the departments of any industry. Today's topic probably it will give you a lot of insights about before starting an energy audit, what are the preparation you need to do as an industry before calling an energy auditor. See, this particular topic, we thought that this is very much important for any maintenance manager or the energy manager who is working in an industry should know a conducive atmosphere is very much needed for a successful energy audit and to achieve the desired result from an energy audit. Hence, we thought that this particular topic is very important. About the presenter, Ashok Sethuraman sir is not new to our TechSpert group. He has done a lot of webinars. He presented a lot of webinars earlier also. But particularly for this particular subject, he is the very opted person because he has done more than 400 plus energy audits in his career. So I thought that I requested him to present today's topic and he graciously agreed. Thank you very much, Ashok Sethuraman sir, for your time and effort to make this particular presentation today. And I would like to thank all the each and every participants, those who are in today, for a fantastic knowledge sharing and knowledge gaining experience to you. With this, I would like to hand over to Mr. Shravan. Shravan, over to you.
Thank you so much, sir, for the welcome note. So, members, with no further ado, we will move on to the main event for today, and that's a webinar on the topic of steps that needs to be taken by the industries while preparing for an energy audit by our keynote presenter Ashok Sethuraman sir. And before I request sir to share his screen and proceed with the webinar today, it's my privilege to be introducing sir. Sir is a Bureau of Energy Efficiency empaneled accredited energy auditor from Coimbatore. And sir is also the Vice President of Indian Association of Energy Management Professionals. And he has conducted energy audits in India and abroad in around a whopping 400 industries. And he has 4 decades of field experience in industry maintenance, projects, commissioning, etc. And of course, professional training in India and abroad, and has worked for a few years in abroad. He writes energy conservation articles in many national magazines like Electrical India, Cooling India, Textile Journals, Bureau of Energy Efficiency, and IEAMP websites as well. Sir has also launched few books with respect to the subject, which has been received with a lot of accolades. And thank you, Ashok sir, for accepting our invitation to address the expert audience today. And I request you to kindly share your screen and proceed with your presentation, sir. Thank you. Ashok sir, yeah, I can see the screen. Can you also try sharing your webcam, sir?
Yeah. Am I visible now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please proceed.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. My screen is visible now.
Your screen has got unshared, sir. Can you try again?
Yeah.
Same with your video as well. Maybe there's a
Yeah,
network issue. In case if
video
there is a
screen.
network issue, I'll ask you to switch off the video later.
Yeah. Okay.
So you can click on the presentation mode and you can proceed, sir. Are you able to, yeah, kindly click on the presentation mode.
Presentation mode is not visible to me. Ah, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, is it fine? Is it okay, Shravan?
It's not in the presentation mode, sir. Maybe you have to click on the presentation mode.
I have clicked on as it. I am getting it as presentation mode here as it.
Okay, maybe while you were sharing, you didn't check it. Kindly unshare and share the presentation mode one window.
Okay, okay, okay. Now is it okay, Shravan?
No, sir, you can just proceed. I mean, in the interest of time, you can just proceed. We can only see the normal window, but not the presentation one. In the meantime, I'll try to download the PPT. You can proceed, sir.
Okay. Good evening to one and all. Sincere thanks to our Murugesan sir and his team, because the topic, especially, it is very much wanted in the industry. It is wanted by the industry how the energy audit has to be taken as an excellent special program to be conducted by the industry, because this is the facilitating point for the given industry to start the energy conservation and energy efficiency implementation. So I sincerely thank this topic has been chosen for the welfare of the industry, and it has to reach the industry. The main objective and motto of this program is only the Tech Experts program. Thank you all. To start with, the plant management, the technical team, and the people, that is the users. The three spheres of the energy management, it has to be balanced. And here, the plant management initiates the energy audit program, and the technical team is aware of where is the energy usage and where are the energy losses. They are aware, vaguely they are aware. And the culture is to control or conserve energy or save energy in all the aspects. That is the culture of the people. Okay. all the three spheres are there in the industry now, but they have to initially, before starting the energy audit, they have to initially have a preliminary internal meeting with all the decision making heads, and the team has to sit together to know and discuss and where all to start, what to start, where to start, and how to proceed on this energy audit, and what are the pain points or what are the thrust points where they have to concentrate.
Ashok sir, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have shared the screen for you, so you can go
Okay.
through the order of slides, which I will be sharing it to you, sir.
Okay,
Sure.
fine. Shall I close this, or you will?
Yes, sir, you can close that and you can refer to the ones which I have
Shall I
shared.
proceed?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Next, please. Yeah. So the energy audit is the responsibility lies with all the departments. That is the electrical maintenance, mechanical, the production, and the quality. Here, I must say, in each and every industry, I'm just trying to also share the case studies of the prevailing industries. The electrical department measures the energy because the electrical department is responsible. It's not only responsible. They think the industry thinks the electrical department is only responsible for the measurement and control of energy. It is not like that. Each and every department is important: electrical, mechanical maintenance, as well as the production and the quality. Because why I'm telling this is quality is to tell you a case study on industry. They always say the waste collection system Pascal has to be maintained more than 1000 Pascal for the given industry. Whereas if it is maintained at around 600 or 700 Pascal, as stated by the manufacturer, straight away they can achieve around 15% energy savings. So the quality also has to work in conjunction, in sync with the production and the maintenance, to maintain the parameters optimum for the given industry and process. This is where the management is always with us to continue with energy savings, and definitely, and this is what we need from the industry point of view. Thank you. Next, please. Yeah. So the preliminary data collection for the given industry. Some industries we need a 1 year trailing year, 1 year trailing all the kilowatt and kVA, the electrical parameters, as well as the production figures. The production and the electrical figures we can match, and the SEC, specific energy consumption over the period, can be studied. This is one aspect. It can be for 1 year or it can be 3 years, depending on depending on the industry. If it is a DC, it is meant for 3 years. If it is an industry where the power cost is more pinching the operating profit margin, definitely this has to be studied for 3 years. If it is a normal industry, 1 year is also enough to start with. Then the single line diagram. See, these are all the formats the industry has to keep ready to the energy auditor, so that his time is limited and his time is precious in the industry. So once his time is precious, we have to share all the important formats, so that the one side is observation, the other one is the all the recordings and the trend readings, the other one is what are all the logbook readings. So the single line diagram for the electrical from the EB incoming to the motors. Then comes the capacitors, what all that has been installed, because the old school of that is for the given kVA, let us say 40% rated of capacitors in all the industries. That is not so now. As such, the concept has totally changed, because the industry is having both of electrical loads and electronic loads, linear loads and non-linear loads, where especially the VFDs, especially the branded VFDs, they maintain already around 0.9 to 0.95 as the power factor. In that case, too much of capacitors in the powerhouse also, it is going to be a loss to the industry. So for the sanction demand and for the recorded demand variations that is studied for a year, we know where we stand. And another aspect is, apart from the capacitors, the reactance coupled capacitors installation, where it is done at the SSB, at the powerhouse, and what is done at the load end. Load end, see, to be specific, the APFC functioning in all the incoming three phases is more important, because now the industry has gone slightly economical mode to go for 1 CT mode only. If they go for a 3 CT mode of measurement, especially in controlling the automatic power factor control, once you go for an automatic power factor control, means it has to be 3 CT operated. See, these are all the initial conceived information that is available in the industry. This we have to discuss with the auditor. Then the earth grid matrix that is there in the power house, that is there from the transformer to the power house to the load ends, where all it is done and how it is done, whether it is a conventional type or it's a maintenance free type, where it is done maintenance free and where it is done conventional, and what are all the failures that has happened in the conventional side and what are all the failures that has been curbed, that has been totally reduced by going for maintenance free earthing electrodes. Then comes a single line diagram of power factor also, what is maintained at the load end, what is maintained at the SSB, what is maintained at the DB and SSB, what is maintained at the powerhouse, at the ACP, at the transformer secondary, and then to the EB income. Here if you find, in many of the industries, once you enter the industry, we know if it is a highly fluctuating load, what is done in the industry. See, we have recently done on a very big industry engineering group. In fact, this industry is having an active filter, all the reactants, coupled capacitors, everything is there. After doing our energy audit, we suggested them more than 20% of their load has to be done for load and compensation. They have revisited to the load and compensation topic. They have done that and they have reduced all their capacitors, excess redundant capacitors that is there in the powerhouse in the SSP, and they are able to save almost 4 to 5% of energy savings in this aspect. See, that is why I said, what is the power factor band that is to be safely kept in the industry? That industry was maintaining a power factor around 0.9596. So each and every industry, if it is a kilowatt, not the kVH billing is there, each and every industry can have a safe power factor loading or a band with which the harmonics or the excess power capacitors or excess amplified harmonics due to capacitors, these are all can be avoided. And then is the power quality in the distribution, how much it is taken care and how it is taken care at the distribution, at the incoming and at the load ends. The THD norms are, is it as per the norms or any deviation is there on the voltage side and the current side and what can be done. These are all the discussions you have to have in the opening meeting with your energy auditor once you comes and sits in your premises. The voltage fluctuations from the AB, if the powerhouse is SS is very near or it is far off or there is a heavy fluctuations, this also has to be discussed with the electrical board authorities as well as to the auditor. What has to be done? You have to give a background, that is with all the background details only, with all the trend graphs, you have to submit to the AB if there is heavy fluctuations due to loose connections at the incoming side. The OLTC of the given industry has to be perfectly operating the counter that is there set in the industry that is operating. All these readings you have to keep in record so that once the auditor is there, he can see where all you have maintained as per the norms and where the deviation is happening, he can go into it in depth and he can go the corrections as such. Next, please, Sean. So, each and every industry, maybe it's a MSME or it is a large scale industry or it's a medium scale industry. What are all the energy losses is happening is individual energy equipments like transformer means you assume it's around 99.5% as stated by the OEM as per the 1180 standards, but it is around 98% only the efficiency. Motors, the average motor efficiency is around 85%. So after all, from the transformer to the motor to the pump to the control valves to the piping network to all the process, almost only 30% of the real energy goes to the process. So much of losses is happening on the pumping side and on the controlling side, especially on the piping network side. These are all the areas, the material of construction of the piping, we have to check during the audit to know where the MOC can be improved upon, especially on the aluminum type of piping in the compressed air header. This MSCRW or this GI type of piping is going out, it's getting obsolete in the industry, especially in the compressed air. As well as the rigid PVC pipes and all the water pipes, the friction loss is able to, it can be reduced and straight away around 15 to 20% of energy saving is possible by going for a rigid PVC piping, especially on the water circulation. All these aspects we will discuss during the period of study at the time of audit, but these are all the inputs we need from the industry. Next, please. So, when you are making ready for the energy audit in your industry, you just categorize your loads. You can discuss with your OEM also. What is your constant torque loads? What is your variable torque loads? The constant torque loads, you can see the variation in speed from 0 to 100%, the torque is only constant. Most of your production machines only will be constant torque loads. Most of your variable torque loads will be on the compressors, centrifugal compressors especially, even the axial flow fans also to some extent, and the centrifugal flow pumps to some extent. So the constant torque loads, the production machines, they want the VFD only for flexibility of process operations. It doesn't have to do with any energy savings there. The energy savings is possible only on the variable torque loads. You can see the variable torque load graph where you can see the torque versus the power, it is in sync. So if you can give the optimum torque from your motor and the optimum power from the motor for the given speed, there you lies the real crux of the energy loss. This energy loss can be definitely been probed upon, it can be definitely be studied upon, and it can be improved upon. Once you do the variable torque, what are all the measurements to be done and what are all the measurements to be done on the constant torque load. These inputs will definitely give you a appreciable energy savings, especially based on the Cube law. It's an excellent candidate for VFD. This will give an excellent savings, energy savings on these variable torque loads. Next, please. Especially if you are able to, on a 1500 RPM motor, if you are able to reduce the RPM by 10%, you are able to save around 27% of the power thanks to the Cube law, and especially applied to the fan applications, centrifugal fan and even the axial flow fan. This energy savings is possible on this centrifugal fans. It's a backward code or a forward code, wherever is the fan, but if it is a centrifugal type, the amount of savings is enormous, provided you are able to optimally fix your speed. Instead of 1500 or 1470 RPM for a given motor, it need not run your blower at 750 RPM. What is the maximum maximum flow for the given RPM at the given static, that is the best efficiency point of the blower, is decided by the VFD that is going to be retrofitted on your motor. Give the optimum torque and the optimum speed for the given blower mechanisms to achieve the flow as well as the static pressure and achieve an excellent efficiency of the blower, and the savings is the byproduct as such. Next, please. So the necessity of energy management, when you are starting the energy audit, the steps towards the energy audit, it states that the necessity of energy management is it is based on a number of aspects for the company operation. All must be aware of this. It is not only the maintenance, the energy manager or the energy core team, where all the departments are getting converged in this and discussing about these points, especially the energy cost is going to affect the company's profitability, or the energy cost is affecting the market competitiveness. This market competitiveness and the company profitability is a different this one, but ultimately the energy cost is the fulcrum of both these two. Ultimately, a company is doing well, but it is abusing the surroundings, means the local and global environments also is important to us. The PPE, personal protective equipment, or the occupational health and safety for the users, for the operators, or for the people in the plant, the engineers in the plant, they have to take care of themselves. See, the energy audit covers each and every aspects, where the loss prevention and waste disposal, also excess of waste disposal, as I said before, excess of Pascal on a wasted gas or a wasted air, that is a loss, not in terms of kilowatt, but it in some terms of that much of air or wasted air, it is a loss to the industry. If it is having an abusive chemical, then it is a waste disposal also is, if it is optimized, definitely it can be put to normal shape and size. The productivity is definitely going to be in direct influenced by the energy audit and conservation. And the quality of, see, this energy audit also promotes the automation concepts in the company, where you are able to fine tune the quality of the final component from your organization and thereby achieve an excellent quality of the product also. So normally the industry management things, in some of the industries where we have done the audits, the management says, sir, my power cost is only 5% of the total production cost, so I don't need to bother about it. It is not like that. See, each and everywhere the power reduction or the energy conservation has to be done, means it has to be done. If it is done only, it is better for the company. I'll just show you a case. Next, please. If you see, yeah, this is called we always give, Bureau of Energy always gives our energy manager and energy auditor guide this Kusum chart. This Kusum chart, it gives on the y-axis the energy consumption on each month and the production on each month. We draw a line for each and every month. Wherever the dots are there, the y is equal to mh plus c, the energy consumed versus the production for the period, and m is the energy consumption that is directly related to the production. That is the variable, and it is varying with respect to each and every month. If we have seen in some of the energy audits in the key tea industries, especially on the lean months, the thermal consumption, SEC, thermal specific energy consumption was very much more. The electrical consumption was steady. It was slightly more only, but the thermal energy consumption, especially the waste heat blowers and the boilers, they have the air, this one, blowers, air heaters, air operated, this one for the to dry the tea leaves. There, the thermal energy consumption was very much more. So, after studying this, we are able to discuss with the client and try to flatten the curve, reduce the SEC at the thermal side, especially during the lean period. So if each and every industry in your end, if you are able to spot this curve on every month, then you will find that whichever the dots that is coming on the best fit line, that is needs to be adjusted. And what is the point where it is going to hit the y-axis? This is the point it is going to say this is your TAR load, TAR load for the given industry. This is varying from month to month. Which month is less, that you can take as the base, and the reference point you can build upon this. These are all the internal working we have to do from the industry before we call the energy auditor. See, these are all the, already a lot of homework has to be done. Then only it will be a win-win situation for the energy auditor, for the energy conserving team, as well as for the, ultimately the benefits is achieved by the industry thanks to all your collaborative working only. Next, please. Yeah. So in the primary data collection, to start with motors, as I said, any production equipment or any utility equipment, the nameplate and the rated capacities has to be jotted down, and it has to be in the, as a ready reckoner, it has to be there in the fingertips, especially in the energy audit analysis. Bureau of Energy Efficiency always says monitor to target. Equip all your equipments with in situ multifunction meters if it is more than 20 HP or 30 HP or a critical equipment. Any equipment needs a basic kWh meter and a run-hour meter if it is intermittently run. And classify your motors whether they are all IE1, IE2 or IE3. If it is IE1 or IE1, you have to change out IE2, and if it is going to be a VFD driven, it is better to go for a IE3 motor. Definitely, the percentage increase in the speed, especially in the IE3, which is an inverter compatible motor, that is going to stand better for the lifetime, over its lifetime of say 15 years. The motor loading in the given industry, all these inputs are available to you. You just put it in different formats. This can be in different form. All the values may be same, but the formats may be different. The motor loading, all the motors, the loading is less than 40% or below loading, average loading, and average loading where it is around 60 to 80%, and it is overloading. These are all the inputs will show whether the motor needs a replacement or it is due to excess load or there is an unbalance in current which is causing this motor loading to be abnormally happening. Then comes the rewinding. Why the motor is getting burnt out? The root cause analysis has to be done by you as well. Whatever the root cause analysis has been done by you, you have to discuss with the auditor to know whether the aspect of why this has failed and how this need to be not to be repeated. That also has to be discussed, because we don't want any other motor to be burnt out in your plant just because of obsolete bimetallic thermal overload relays. The concept has changed now. Thanks to all this electronic motor overload relays, which is based on negative phase sequence components of current sensing, it is going to be a foolproof protection for all your motors, especially on your critical motors. It can be for a lower HP motor. It is costing around 2,000 rupees only. It is going to, can be used on a lower HP or else a higher HP, but definitely it is a better or a foolproof protection than a thermal overload relay. Why I am suggesting is a motor can be loaded less, a motor can be loaded more, but still the thermal overload relay may not sense. It may be slow to sense, whereas a electronic motor protection relay will sense and strip your motor, that is stop your motor from burning out. The RPM measurement from the motor to machine, this is a monthly recording to be done by you. I will discuss in length later, but that is also more important too in terms of productivity for your given industry. So the motor and utility, the production machines in the utility machines, motors, especially the run hours has to be there either in the OEM's console or you can fit it, retrofit. And you know how many hours of the motor has run. See, the auditor is asking you, sir, how many motors are running in your premises for almost 3 shifts? How many motors are running for 2 shifts? How many motors are running for 1 shift? These are all the inputs to be available at your fingertips so that the more the hours of run of a motor, that needs to be immediately attended to for energy savings. Next, please. So coming to the motors, as I said, it is either average loading or below loading. This below loading, okay, why can we go for a lower size HP motor, or why can we fix a automatic Del Star to operate the motor at star operated motor by automatic operation conversion using a EEPROM microcontrollers. The voltage drops that is happening in the plant. See, the voltage drop, once we have taken the energy audit analysis, all our readings will say what is at the transformer end, it is almost 420 volt. What is at the tail end motor, it is only 360 volt or 380 volt. This drop of 5 to 10 volts in between is allowed normally in the given industry. If it is more than 10 volt or 20 volts, it is a loss to the industry. How this can be corrected upon? This can be corrected upon by a simple revisiting to the old topic only. Load and compensation, all the tail end motors for all the that is, we call it as the end of line resistor, especially on the fire and safety. It is like end of line motors. This all needs to be, if it is not VFD driven, definitely it has to be compensated. Any motor above 10 HP needs to be compensated with a no load KVR capacitor, sized capacitor. Automatically the power factor improves, the line loss also reduces. So before the energy audit also is going to do the load analysis. He is used to use your load manager, power quality analysis, power analysis, then infrared analysis, then ultrasonic, all the predictive tools he is going to use. But his stay is very limited in your industry. In that case, why not we do the thermal imaging routinely? Because it is trying to save our equipments from the safety. Especially on the safety aspect, the thermal imaging has to be done. Which are the motors which is running very hot, more than 70 degrees or 80 degrees? That is a point of immediate focus point. Any motor which is running warm, it is an excellent motor. Any motor which is running cold, it is an idling motor, the loss is more. Any motor which is overheated and it is running at more than 80 or 90 degrees, it is also a loss. The loss can be due to a non-driven fan cowl at the drive end, that non-driven, that may not be functioning properly. On the lubrication, you have gone for a conventional greasing instead of a polyurea thickened specialty greasing. This is able to dissipate the heat from the drive end bearings or the non-drive end bearings automatically to the motor skin, and automatically it is able to vent out the heat. So focus on the accelerating your motors. That is more important. All the above details, it can be kept in our bench so that the deviations can be discussed with the auditor when he is coming in. What are all the problems and how this can be corrected? How this need not to be repeated? We have to only discuss that point as such. Next, please. RPM, I was telling you before, this RPM is a routine activity by the given industry. Every industry thinks I'll buy a 2,000 rupees or a 3,000 rupees non-contact type tachometer. But this stroboscope, it is an excellent tool. Without switching off the motor or the machine, you can directly measure based on the optical pulses from the LED, this one source. And this is routinely done in many of the large-scale industries we have seen during our energy audits, especially the DC, the designated consumers, mills, or the industries. They are using this and they are measuring their all productive machines to know how much of production RPM is getting lost in each and every month or each and every machine. They are able to study it and they are able to rectify the fault as and immediately. This is what it is wanted in our industry. Next, please. So the problems identification, especially on the, it is only, see, we can assume the energy audit is not a fault finding exercise, but the energy audit will give you what are all the obsolete practices, why we have not updated. Some of our plant personals, plant engineers, they have not been updated because they are sitting in the same place for more than 10 years or 20 years. they have to be educated from all the cross faculty or the cross industry inputs, especially on the energy management. That has to be given. Thanks to Bureau of Energy Efficiency, more of energy managers and energy auditors are there now, and you can definitely make use of them. Not only for the energy audit, it is for energy awareness, energy management training, or energy conservation training aspects. Then only you get the inputs through energy education is half done in energy conservation. That is what everyone is telling that, and it is happening in the industry. So normally we find any of the machines or the utility equipments like from transformers or all the electrical distribution equipment, switch gears or all the motors or all the pumps, the origin of inefficiency starts in the utility machines right from the date of installation. You go to any of the, almost you can say around hundreds of participants are there, more than hundreds. In all your industries, you go and see your screw compressor. Every screw compressor will be working like a box only. It needs to have a duct type hood on top of your screw compressor so that the hot air has to be exhausted out easily out of the compressor house. How many of us have done it? None of us have done it. Many, almost 7 out of 10 industries have not taken care to remove the hot air that is coming out of the compressor to be exhausted outside the compressor house. If you do that, the compressor efficiency improves immediately on the next day. So the end-to-end losses, especially in the energy losses, all the utilities from the transformer to the what is the HTTLT loss that is there, daily it has to be monitored, and where do we stand? Are we at 0.5%? Are we at 1%? Are we at 1.5 or 2%? Especially the transformer losses. This is to be studied. It is a daily recording of our industry, the parameters, electrical distribution losses, and the end-to-end, the voltage drops that is happening, as I was telling, 420 to 380 or 410, where it is happening. What is the amount of loss? You can have thanks to IoT devices, you can have the alarms which can pick up and can just prompt you. It can give you the input. These are the areas to be attended to, especially the air conditioning plants on all the building segments, building type, all these facility management industries. The generation is at 0.7 kilowatt per ton, we all talk about. At the point of distribution and at the point of usage, so much of dropping is happening, so much of, at the point of usage, so much of loss is happening. It is not only on the air conditioning, it is on the compressors, it is on the fans and blowers. Especially on the compressors, it is not the generation, distribution, usage, and leakage also happens. Leakage is an invariably, it's a variable quantity which is not in control. It has to be controlled thanks to all the latest sonic imagers and other acoustic, this one, ultrasonic measurement. This one has come. We are able to spot the leakages and immediately attend to it immediately. The fans and blowers also, everyone thinks it is only the generation, distribution, and usage. In fact, in many of the waste collection mechanisms in our industries, we have seen the leakage of that is the, in some of the places where the equipments, it is kept open. That means it is a leakage. It is getting sucked up, and from the atmospheric air. It is a redundant use of the blower for the atmospheric air. It is not using for the purpose of machine, but it is used taking the air from the outside, sucking air from outside. It is a loss for the blower's efficiency only. So commissioning report of all the above utilities need to be studied once the equipments are purchased, and immediately the commissioning report and the nameplate details, it has to match. For example, a waste collection machine is operated for 2200 Pascal rated machine is operated for almost 800 to 900 Pascal for a given industry, means it is so big a gap is not required. You have to reduce the gap. If you are operating the same machine at 1600 Pascal to say around 1000, the 600 Pascal is the loss in the duct, loss in the machines, loss in the bends and other things. That is at least it can be taken care. So the transmission to distribution loss from the energy, especially in the equipments end to end, is a matter of concern for all the industries now. Next, please. Especially the preliminary data on the compressors. Everyone, we have all purchased the compressors, but we have to also ask the compressor OEM to do the commissioning report, like doing the pump up capacity. Or if it is possible, if let us say the energy authority is coming to the industry, let us say he is coming after a week or a month, 2 weeks, you try to have your insertion type mass flow meters, thermal mass balance flow meters are available. Not only on the compressor, it can be used in blowers also. These are all the things can be fitted at the right place where the point of installation also is it is very important. If it is installed on the compressor header, then when the auditor is here, we know how much of CFM is generated by the compressor at what pressure. Normally, a compressor is purchased for 8 bar pressure and it is operated at 6 bar because the package power is more than that service factor of 1.2 for the given compressor motor. So that is why wherever you buy the compressor, you don't buy the compressor for the rated pressure operating. My operating pressure is 7 bar means you cannot buy the compressor for 7 bar. You have to buy a compressor for 9 to 10 bar only. Then only you have to operate the compressor in the derated 7 bar or whatever is the operating pressure that is required by. The compressed air flow meter, it is going to cost less. It is around a lakh. Before it was 3 lakhs, 4 lakhs, and all. It is costing only a lakh. But it is better always to install before the audit, or it is once the compressor is installed, you need to support this with a compressed air flow meter also. Then only we know the generation, what is the generation efficiency. In some of the compressors, we always talk about watt per CFM. In many of the industries, they say our watt per CFM is almost 220 to 250 watts per CFM of compressor, whereas the latest generation compressors are operating at 150 to 160 watts per CFM. This is what we want now. Next, please. Also, assume the energy auditor is an expert, it's a subject matter expert, is on the energy audit. Thanks to the expertise having gone to different industries, we can also discuss with him all your electrical or the compressor or the utility equipment's installation is as per the norms. One is the manufacturer's norms, OEM's norms. What is the industry's generic norms? In fact, many of the OEMs, I'm sorry to say this, but many of the compressor OEMs, they concentrate on their compressors, but the compressed air, that is more important. Treatment is more important. If you want to have an excellent compressed air that is given to your process, that it needs, your compressor house needs both a wet control receiver and a dry demand receiver. A wet control receiver means the wet receiver will try to remove the water from the compressors that is coming out. Also, it will control the cut-in, cut-out pressures of the compressor. Whereas the dry demand, this will adjust to the process demand. This will work on the process demand. So you need two receivers, especially on the compressor house. Apart from the two receivers in the compressor house, where there is a heavy load and heavy load consumption is there, that also needs a feed receiver or a tail end receiver, we say. That also is needed. See, invest in passive receivers. It is always good. The compressed air flow in meters per second, it is almost 10 meters per second, we say. From main meter, what is the flow per second and what is in the branch and sub branches. Each and every line size and each and every main flow header or the branch flow header, it is different. That has to be worked out and go for the right optimum meter per second on the compressed air flow. Turbulence, if it is given in the compressed air, it is a loss to the compressed air system. Next, please. I'm just giving a macro view of an industry which is trying to make ready for the energy audit. Each and every equipment, right from the transformer, from the motors, from the machines, production machines, all these compressors, then the pumps. What are the pump suction and delivery pressures? The pump nameplate, it gives lot of inputs to you. You store the nameplate or take details of the nameplate and go with the pump manufacturer's OEM's specifications, technical specifications. Nameplate is giving the basic inputs, but the technical specifications, what is the operating temperature of the fluid and what are all the inputs that is there? What is the delta P across the pump that is allowable? What is the suction NPSH to be net positive suction net to be maintained at the suction of the pump? And what is the delivery pressure in meter? See, you may buy a pump for 8 meters head delivery, but you will be operating a pump for only around less than a kg, around 0.5 kg only. Almost 1 kg takes almost 10 meters. It means what you need, what is the head you need for the delivery and what you are maintaining. All these inputs are important. So you see here that the pressure gauge sensing points across the pumps on the suction and discharge, on the heat exchangers on the suction and discharge, on the cooling towers, what are all the pressure differential it is to be measured. You see that the provisions are there. When the energy auditor comes in, the readings are easily accessible to us. Whenever we go to any of the pumping mechanisms on the given industry, wherever we see, we find the pressure is not at all measurable because the pressure gauge is not working. And if you ask the energy audit, when you do the energy audit, we may do it for 3 days or 4 days. At the time, to fix a pressure gauge on the pressure line, they will say they have to switch off the equipment, they have to switch off the process. It is not going to happen immediately. So these are all the preparations where you have to do. The preparations for the cooling tower or for the heat exchangers, why we are concentrating more on the pressure is a excess pressure drop on a cooling tower shows the polyfills that is there in the cooling tower, it is getting choked. Or the pressure difference across a heat exchanger, once the line and the choke is getting, the line is diameter is getting reduced due to choke, automatically the pressure differential goes more. The temperature differential is a matter of concern for the efficiency, whereas the pressure differential across the blower or the cooling tower or a heat exchanger, it is a matter of concern of the health of the machines. The MOC, material of construction of piping, as I said before, the rigid PVC, especially on the water lines. And we are using the water circulation. Here I will say, thanks to the gazette notifications, 1 unit of power, 1 kWh, before it was consuming 6 to 7 liters of water at the thermal stations. Thanks to BE and PAT norms now, the 2.5 to 3 liters of water only can be consumed to produce 1 unit of power at the thermal stations at the generation point. So like that, the water norms, see, excess of water that is being pumped in the industry, that is also lost to the industry. You are using excess of water, your circulation water is more, your pumping pressure is more, it is all excess. So excess means excess kilowatt, excess water consumption, then the material water hammering or any of the problems that is happening in the systems, that is a wet part of the system, that is also a loss to the system. Optimize your pressure, that is more important, and water parameters, the TDS or the hardness, every time routinely it has to be monitored, and you are trying to maintain it, especially in the summer months. Next, please. So the pressure gauges, it can be put with an impulse and directly put on a side stand so that you monitor the pressure where it is in the green line. You just also put a marker there whether you are operating correctly or we are going out of the league. Wherever it is deviating, that is a point of concern that is to be noted immediately and that has to be taken care. Next, please. Coming to the blowers efficiency is measured by the flow static pressure and the input kilowatt. And 9 out of 10 industries, we don't measure the static pressure at all in our industry. So when the energy auditor is coming, before he comes to the your premises, you see it that you give provision to measure the static pressure at the point of measurement, either the suction or the delivery, where you are going to use for the negative side or the positive side. But this pressure measurement is, static pressure measurement is very critical, especially to assess the efficiency of your blower. Or your blower can be, it can be fine-tuned with a VFD to achieve the best efficiency point of your blower. The fan performance of the given blower can be achieved to the maximum by going for a retrofitting a VFD, and the resizing of belts and pulleys. If you are going for a V belt, you can go for a carved belt, and that also gives an excellent savings. But you have to make provision to measure the static pressure. The static pressure gradient from the blower to the machine, almost it may be some few, it may be 10 or 20 meters distance, but the point of distance on the duct loss, how much it is happening, this is also a point of measurement, and whatever the drop that is happening, the static Pascal drop, that is a point to be immediately attended to. It is not visible. A compressed air pressure drop means everyone is visible and they have a compressed air pressure gauge, pressure switch at the end, tail ends. It will give an alarm. But for the blower, we have not seen, because we have not used the digital static Pascal meter. It is just costing 8,000 or 10,000 rupees in the portable meters. If it is, even it can be fixed on some of the bigger blowers, 50 HP and all, those blowers can be having a in situ digital Pascal meter, so that we know what Pascal we are operating. By the going by the Cubes law, if you are able to optimize the Pascal for the given blower, automatically you can achieve an excellent savings. So you plan to discuss with the machine OEM, blower OEM, or the belt and pulley OEM to retrofit this VFD and pulleys and belts. Or if you have to replace your blower in your AHU with a EC fan is still in the nascent stage, it is very costly. People are afraid of only of the initial cost, but the excellent savings is that the existing blowers also you can achieve around 30% savings, or if you go for an EC fan also you can achieve more amount of savings. The more the measurements you do on your given blower, it will give you a way where you can take your blower next. Next, please. As I said, especially on the air handling units, especially on the HVAC segments, in all these office building premises, IAQ, internal air quality, that is more important. interior air quality is more important, and the CO2 monitoring, if it is going to alarming level, because the blowers are not operating, the static pressure is not there, and the pressure is getting dropped from the blower to the return, then it is a loss to the premises. The occupational health hazard also comes in. So the blower efficiency is also having a problem with this delta P across the filters. The more choke in the filters, automatically the blower efficiency dropping. You can see the dirty filter and the clean filter. So much of static pressure is increasing. The static pressure has to be kept optimum. It is to be monitored. So we know condition monitored filters, what the filter can operate with minimum, what it can operate with maximum, and what is the operating pressure drop across the filter. These are all the points. The HVAC auxiliaries has to be given to the user as such, consumer as such. Next, please. So on the macro view, considering some of the utilities, these are all the pointers, fine pointers to be seen by the industry, where especially from the transformer to all the machines utilities, especially on the electrical side we have touched upon, but it is on the steam thermal side also. If you see the boiler means you have to see the boiler and the steam side, and the steam side also steam distribution layout, piping layout, and the boiler has to be operated at the highest pressure and the usage to be at the lowest pressure through the PRDS or the nano turbine that is going to be used in many of the textile processing industries. So classify the production and utility, which are all the linear loads, which are all the non-linear loads. If you are able to demarcate this, and what are the capacitors that has to be there in the linear loads only, non-linear loads try to avoid the capacitors because they always have around 0.9 to 0.95. A branded DFT gives a excellent power factor. And whatever is the utility, try to go for a VFD for better energy savings. And the energy measure on individual utility is also is the need of the hour, both on the input side and on the output side. Power quality, it is not only disturbing the EB incoming, it is also getting scattered to the other parts of the other loads of the plant also. So wherever the line reactance choke has to be implied or to be used on the harmonic reduction, especially in the VFDs, if the system is healthy, if your EB incoming is healthy, definitely the line reactance choke plus the reactance coupled capacitor, the SSB, automatically will try to have a maintain the power factor at around say 0.95. If you are happy with 0.95, the industry is happy with that. Let us be happy with that. If you go for 0.996 or 0.997, automatically leading average comes, automatically voltage fluctuations comes, almost harmonic is going to damage many of the electronic interlocks and components within the plant. It can be avoided. So point to notice, any deviations or any details on the above, it can be discussed with the energy auditors. He is going to come. You assume your energy auditor is an excellent candidate to discuss, to share his expertise with you. Next, please. So the energy efficiency benefits by doing your energy audit. What is your deliverables by the energy audit and conservation? One is reduction of energy bills. The increased productivity. See, having done many energy audits with the PAT designated consumers, we found that we have taken their 4-year records. After doing their energy audits and conservation, what all the energy conservation they have done, they have that much of percentage of savings, around 5 to 10% or 15%. They have utilized it to raise their production. So ultimately, the production is raised automatically, and the quality of output is definitely, it is also improved. Profit, it is not only the increased profits and also the increased competitiveness of the comparing to the peers in the market, it can be seen as it. But ultimately, the energy audit is the initial facilitation tool so that the machine's health is improved, and we try to give minimum energy input for the maximum output of the machine. Important is we have to get more productivity per machine, either on the utility side or on the mainly on the production side. That is more important to us. Next, please. Here, I should say, automation, the effect of the essence of automation and the byproduct of automation for the given industry is only the energy conservation or the energy efficiency. So if you are able to automate your many of your utility or many of your machines in your plant, automatically the peak loads can be flattened, and automate the environment protection also. And the more of pulsations is, see, we have basic automation. What you are doing on your screw compressor or on your compressor, if you try to have your pressure control sensor from the main hood of the compressor and just switch it or relocate it to the compressed air receiver, we can see the pulsations, the zigzag pulsations, which is operating from say 40 kilowatt to 120 kilowatt. This will come to within 60 to 70 kilowatt. A band, zigzag band definitely narrows down and it is getting stabilized. So many of the automation inputs, thanks to the IoT with devices, many of the, see all the pressure differentials, this can be monitored and this can be given as a prompting alarm to the user so that we know, let us say the OEM says 3000 hours you replace this filter, 6000 hours you replace this. Let us not go by the time-based replacements. We will go by the condition-based replacements. We will see to it that the process is held smooth and there is no drop or slack of energy flow in the process, thanks to the condition monitoring, and this thermal imaging also helps in a very big way. And automation of the processes will definitely see to it that the process is not operated at maximum, peak maximum and peak minimum. It will try to remove the pulsations, it will try to flatten your system efficiency as well as the output load also. Next, please. So the pillars of energy management, successful energy management, the top management has to initiate and commit for this one. Let us go for the energy audit, and then only we will have a chartered plan. The plant personnel can have a chartered plan in discussion with the management, and this is a in-house meeting with all the teams, energy related teams, and it can be already told to all the plant process people, the plant people. The energy auditors are going to come in the next week, they are going to do it. So what are all the field inputs from the, see, whenever we do the energy audit, and sometimes when we go to the boiler, I go and sit with the boiler operator to discuss with him for more than an hour, what is the way, how he is operating it daily. This will give a lot of inputs to us. The energy conservation proposals can be worked out in a boiler like this. So the field persons, the shop floor persons, they are the persons to give you a lot of inputs where this can be improved upon. So the effective monitoring is next step, but the inputs, we have to take the inputs from the machines, or the machine operators, or from the shop floor. They will give a lot of inputs to the top management or the middle management, and that has to be taken more. The good communication, and make the communication more palatable to the management. Say, let us say this is to be replaced, or this is to be adjusted, or this is to be fine-tuned. This much of loss initially today, but this is going to be a first year gain itself is more than it. Within a few months, it gets paid back. This amount of discussion has to happen on each and every proposal internally itself. Next, please. This is a general guideline. Once you do the energy audit, I'll just say the do's and let us see the don'ts later. You try to have always undertake the regular energy audits. PAT cycle has initiated every 3 years, it has to be repeated. But many of the industries, I can say almost 78 of 8 of 10, many of the industries have not done the energy audits within 3 years. Only the reputed group people are doing once in 3 years, but it has to be done once in 3 years. Then only we know the plant personnel can be sensitized what is happening on the energy conservation and energy efficiency. And you also encourage the people to come out with more ideas. The more ideas from the field, from the work spot, that is going to be a major incentive to the management, and you have to reward them accordingly. Promote the group activities or the cluster activities, not only within the industry or the group of industries, or specific peer industry discussions, cross discussions, if it is happening every routinely, every number then, every few months. This will give a lot of inputs to the plant personnel message. The don'ts, if we see, normally the industry works on a different plane. They don't follow in normal. What is the prevailing practices? The industry is not in touch with the prevailing trend. Then the industry is loser. Also, when the plant manager takes an energy audit proposal and gets stagnant, I don't say energy audit proposal, it's an energy conservation proposal. If it is getting stagnated, don't get stagnated. Try to come out of the proposal and try to see how the energy savings can be done. Normally, many of the industries we have seen, they are all OEM centric. They always listen to their OEMs than to the energy auditors. We, the energy auditors, we are not here to canvas for any product or equipment, but we say that the energy saving, we are negating, we are canvassing for reduction of energy consumption. Whereas the OEMs, you talk to the OEMs and also you have a proactive discussion with the OEM, what can be done instead of safe operation of equipment, that is more important, that is the undercover. What can be done to improve the energy efficiency in your equipment, that is more important to us. So Do not believe what all you hear, but you try to trust but verify. That is our old slogan. Always trust what is happening, but verify what all can be done at your end. Next, please. Don't go for the short-term benefits also. So the next, this one is, you always try to search for the consistent energy efficient technologies and try to avail the expertise, external expertise. Energy audit also has expertise. So avail the subject matter experts, especially on the process side, and you get lot of inputs to your industry. This is more important. The participant, thanks to the government, either the central or the state government, the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, or all the industry associations, we are conducting lot of energy awareness or conservation webinars and seminars. Make use of these seminars. The energy training, conservation training is more done in this, half done in the energy conservation. You want to achieve 100 units per day, 50 units per day is achieved by having the training on energy conservation. Another 50 units will come on your implementation. So that is how it works as such. Then comes the short success stories. They share your success stories to all the other industries, peer groups. That will make you more, it will motivate you to achieve more as such. But do not be afraid to adapt new technologies. That is another this one. See, new technology is there, but how we can match our plant to the new technology, the new technology, how this can be made useful to our plant, that is more important. So the in-house technical capacity is not only enough because they are already there in the plant for many years. So you need to have an external expertise also. Make use of the expertise. Always don't think for low cost solutions. Always think for a high cost as well as high paying. That is the energy saving share has to be more. That is more important. It can be low cost and high paying also. That is okay. But you don't think for a low cost and a lower paying solution. That is not good in the long run. Next, please. So what all we try to do the this one, before we call the energy auditor, first you have the energy study or the energy audit macro. It is a macro discussion with all your teams, and internally you do all the study with your equipments and keep all the discussions and the readings and the trends ready, so that the auditor, when he comes, when he is doing all the studies and reporting, it can be compared upon, it can be discussed with him, proactively discussed with him. But always don't think energy audit is not required. I am already doing well, excellent. So we will guess and do the estimation of work. That is not good. Always do the energy audit once in 3 years or whatever it is convenient to you do it. But this energy audit will definitely give you a long room or a big room where your energy savings is deployed horizontally, broadly, and vertically. Next, please. Always you will find after doing this energy audit and conservation, the shock, relief, and delight is coming to us. The shock means so much of energy units has been consumed all these years. That is a shock to us. And the relief is today, after doing the energy conservation measure implementation, it is a relief. Okay, instead of 100 units per day on this equipment, it has come to 70 units. So 30 units I have lost. It is a relief of saving of 30 units per day. And it is a delight. It is going to be a 70 units for the another 1 year or another 5 years. See, energy saving, it's a continuous exercise. It is not a fit and go exercise, but it is a continuous exercise. And every industry thinks maintenance is a necessary evil. It is not a necessary evil. It is a proactive thinking where you can see nothing can be done to improve the maintenance. This aspect has to be eradicated from the industry and do the maintenance in a proactive way where you are able to sustain the efficiency of the equipment for many till its life period. For example, I can say some of the screw compressors in many of the industries, they said, sir, 50,000 hours the element has gone. They have told the 50,000 hours, but I have seen many of the groups, they are operating for more than 1 lakh hours of the same element. By condition monitoring practice, they are able to convert the screw compressor air and element, they are able to operate for more than 1 lakh hours also. It is not that I am trying to delay your replacements. Where it is required, you need to replace. Where it is not required, if the replacement is done, it is a loss to the industry. Maybe the gain may be there, but it is the initial and the ultimate gain is less only. It is like that. It is a maintenance is a tool to the productivity. We have to think like that. If you see the total owning cost of a given equipment, maintenance is only a tool. The utility to process like a medicine in a bottle and given to our body. You have to shake the bottle before gulping and shake our body after swallowing so that the medicine gets ingested or digested in the body and it works as such. So the utility and the production or the energy conservation also, it is all part and parcel of our own daily routines as such in the industry. Next, please. It is not like that hare and tortoise. You do it now, and after 3 months, you will open the topic of energy conservation. It is not like that. It is a continuous process. You have to keep it on going daily. As and when the time comes, you do it routinely. So having started this, you have decided to go for energy audit. You need to have minimum 4 to 5 meetings. The 4 to 5 meetings, we say initial meeting, that is initial meeting we do with our plant personnel before the auditor comes in. We discuss what all to be needed by the required by the, what is the deliverable for the given auditor, and what all he has to see, what are all the pain points, what are all the thrust points or the focus points that you have to discuss within your team. The second and third meeting is the opening meeting and the closing meeting. Let us say the audit is there in your mill, in your industry for more than 4 days. The opening meeting and the closing meeting will show you are able to make the ends near. That is, you are reducing the gap between you and the auditor, and you are discussing with your auditor freely. And when you are closing the meeting, he will say what is his impression, immediate impression. And after 2 weeks or 1 month, he comes for the post-audit discussion. That is where we know where we stand with all the trended data, with all his recorded data, what all your logbooks say, and what are his impressions about the machines, about the process, about the infrastructure. And after the energy auditor has gone, you have to have one more meeting with all your personnel, plant personnel, what all the things can be implemented immediately. So almost 5 meetings if it is done, it is not a one-time touch and go exercise. It has to be done for more than 6 months. And every now and then you have to see that the implementation of the energy conservation is just done, and the energy savings is done, and productivity is also restored. So always try to treat the energy auditor as your partner towards energy conservation measures during implementation, and you don't think like a challenger. He is not going to challenge you, or he is not going to accept your concept of energy savings. It is only a discussion, mutual discussion. Your equipment is always, your OEM always says the equipment has to be safe, but it is your initiative how to run the equipment energy efficiently. So proactively discuss with your OEM. This is more important. And you ask him how much of energy savings can be done by a fine tuning of your equipment or retrofitting a minor component in the equipment, how this can be energy savings can be done. So engage your energy auditor effectively to utilize this exercise. This is more important. Next, please. So the energy auditor can work well in the industry only when the industry management feels there is an energy loss. So the management initiative or the commitment, that is first important. First and foremost are the pillars of energy management. The management should feel that we have an energy loss, we will let us do the energy save. If all the bottom people, middle level and bottom people, they think the energy management can be done, it is not possible. The boss has to agree energy conservation is possible, then it will happen. And energy auditing is only a tool to facilitate the recovery of the energy losses. And this facilitates to recover the mismatch in the design and operation and in the maintenance of the process and the equipments. Next, please. Thanks for giving this session. It is an excellent eye-opener. I hope it is for the industry, because energy audit is a program which each and everyone has to, they have to make themselves, we call this, they have to make themselves ready for the energy audit before pre-audit, during audit and post-audit. And energy conservation is definitely possible, and the energy audit will definitely motivate you to achieve more of energy savings. All the energy conservation measures I have discussed in this, it is given in this book format, and it is available online. You can purchase and you can see for yourselves. Thanks for giving this opportunity, and you feel free to ask more questions on this preparation towards energy audit. Thank you all. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, sir, for a fantastic presentation. As usual, a lot of very useful content, and with a lot of your passion as well, and it's very evident. And thank you so much for an amazing presentation. So members, we now move on to the Q&A part of today's webinar. Kindly post your questions on the chat window, or you can use raise hand option. You can go to the participants window and use the raise hand option, and I'll call out your name and you can interact with our keynote presenter. You can either post your questions on the chat window or use the raise hand option. So kindly members, request you to post your questions, members. But before that, I also would request you to fill in your feedback form. There's a link which has been posted on the chat window. Kindly click on the link and fill in the feedback form to help us identify the right kind of sessions and organize more and more such useful sessions for you. Thank you. So there is one question for you, Ashok sir. This is from Mr. Shekhar. Request to explain the wet receiver and dry receiver once again, please. So can you please explain that, sir? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shekhar. This wet receiver is meant for, that is the post air cooler in the compressor hood that removes 70% of the moisture, and the air receiver that is next to the compressor, that only is receiving, that is removing the air, the moisture in the air at the ambient temperature. Once the moisture is removed, then only it has to go to the dryer. It is the wet receiver will reduce the load for the dryer, refrigeration dryer, and the dry receiver will take care of the demand for the process demands of the cut in, cut out, or the flow measure. This one it will manage, whereas the wet receiver will try to remove the water in the air from the compressor to the dryer. That is the purpose. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. And this is another question. So, what is the effect of leading power factor?
Pardon, Shravan?
What is the effect of leading power factor?
Leading, yeah. The leading power factor, it is a voltage fluctuations will happen, and definitely the system becomes unstable, and definitely this will be a problems with all your electronic subsystems, metering, or any of the actuation PLC or any of the electronic drives. This will be affecting it. Leading power factor is a curse to the industry, and the industry is at full control to see to it that leading power factor can be definitely be controlled, and it can be avoided as such. If you go for unity power factor, this leading power factor will definitely come in your APFC. Don't go for unity power factor at all. Try to maintain at 0.95 to 0.98. Automatically, it can be avoided by going for a 3cc centing also as such.
Sir, thank you, sir. And there's another question from Ms. Ranjani, sorry. So from which size of motor do you advise to go for VFD, if advisable, and as it can create some power quality issues?
The VFD, selection of VFD for the given motor, it depends upon the process. If the process demands a VFD can be fitted, especially on a blower system, the enormous energy savings is possible. Right from 3 HP to almost 100 HP, you can say, and above also. Yeah, even we have seen around 400 HP, 500 HP motors also with VFD, achieving an optimum static pressure and delivering the output in CFM or meter cube per second, and maintaining the definite optimum fastness. So it depends upon the process application where the VFD needs to be chosen. For the production machines, VFD will not give energy savings, but it will give the flexibility of operation. In many of the industries, VFD has been put in some of the production machines to have a settable frequency or a settable speed. They want to operate a machine for say 20% loading, 30% loading, 60% loading for fixed hours of the day. That can be done with the VFD. That they are doing it. Many of the industries are doing it, but that does not give energy savings. So VFD requirement or selection is based on the process demand and process application. Thank you, Mrs. Ranjani.
Thank you, sir. So, Mr. Srinivasagam, kindly proceed with your question, sir. You can unmute yourself and ask your question. Okay, while we wait for that, let me just read out a few more questions, sir. This is one question from Mr. Giridhar. Sir, what could be losses between HT and LT?
You are exactly right, Mr. Giridhar. This is measurable based on your transformer, based on your loading. See if it is 11 kV or 22 kV, and what is the loading of your transformer. If the loading of transformer is around 50%, normally they are operating the transformer almost to full load. Now the condition, a decade back I am telling, but now they are operating the transformer at 50% load, and especially with non-linear loads also. If it is around 40 to 50%, the loss will be around 1% for a 5-year-old transformer. And if the transformer is very old, let us say 10 years or 20 years, the losses is going to be more, and the transformer also gets derated. The losses also increase every 5 years of operation, and it is increasing only. So normally it is between 1 to 2% the STLT loss, but it is generic. It cannot be quoted directly. As an energy auditor, you have to see what all the transformer impedance, transformer loadings, transformer details, what is the secondary this one, and what is your primary this one. All these inputs will decide what is the loss between ST and LT. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. There's another question from Mr. Punyakoti. Sir, how do you measure the performance of dryer in compressors?
Exactly. Punyakoti, I appreciate your this one, your question, because thanks to thermal imaging, if the dryer input, let us say the compressor output is always, any air compressor output is almost around 5 to 10 degrees above the ambient temperature. That is given to the dryer. And dryer has a limitation above 45 degrees, it cannot accept it. If it is given more than 45 degrees, dryer gets derated. The difference between the input pipe and the output pipe temperature, it should be 5 to 10 degrees around the ambient temperature. If it shows around 5 to 10 degrees, around 5 degrees, let us say, around the ambient, let us say the ambient temperature is 40, the input temperature around 43, 44 degrees, the output temperature is around 36, the dryer is working excellent. One is that way, other one is dew point measurement. Dew point measurement also, a lot of errors comes in by way of display and other this one. But this measurement by thermal imaging, the input and output temperature of the piping, this will give you a clear idea the dryer is working or not. Thank you, Mr. Panikuri.
Thank you, sir. There is another question from Mr. Suresh. Sir, rewinding motors effect on energy conservation?
I very much agree with you, Mr. Suresh, because thanks to this NMRP, this is a forced this objective of this NMRP program by the National Motor Replacement Program is the industry is having an inertia. Let us rewind. Every rewind we may be losing around 0.5 to 2% also based on the rewinding quality, based on the area where the motor has burnt out. So instead of 2 rewindings, the third, let us say the first time it has burnt out, that itself the motor characteristic, the thermal characteristic of the motor is lost. So when you're going for the second rewinding, it is better to think for a new motor. This gives an increase in RPM of the given motor, and it is also inverter compatible. And if you are able to take care, the second time replacement itself, we can think of a new motor that is always better considering the new conditions now. And IE2 motor has become a standard now, minimum standard to be maintained by the industry now, right from 1918 onwards.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sivabhaskaran, please proceed with your question.
Somebody was asking about air dryer performance. See, we are missing pressure drop also, more than temperature difference. Pressure drop across air dryer, it plays a vital role in energy conservation. Often people,
yeah. I very much agree with you, Mr. Sivabhaskaran. The only thing is, for a 160 kilowatt 1000 CFM compressor, if you say, you are supposed to have a dryer of 1500 CFM so that the pressure drop is less. Normally, the old school of thought is 1000 CFM compressor, let us go for 1000 CFM dryer. But the compressor delivery air is more than 45 degrees, the dryer gets derated to 800 CFM. So automatically the pressure drop is more than. So the present trend is go for minimum 50% higher capacity of a dryer, or if you're already having one dryer, you go for a parallel dryer so that you are able to double the capacity of a dryer, almost 50 to 100% capacity more, and you give as a parallel connection to the dryers. This will maintain the pressure differential very minimum possible. Thank you, Mr.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So, Mr. Srinivasan, can you unmute yourself and proceed with your question? Thank you. Okay. I think those were all the questions, sir. And I think there is another question from Mr. Punyakoti. So we have separate meters at most of usage points. On analysis, we found the transmission loss is around 10%. How do we address that?
Definitely, this 10% is more only. Once the readings are taken during the energy audit, definitely this can be attended to. One more thing, the metering CT where you have tried, this is the breakup of energy consumption, electricity consumption, they say. What is taken at the ME panel and what is taken at the machine, the metering CT accuracy also is more important. And there is taking into account the metering CT is okay. If there is 10% difference is there, then the power factor that is measured at the tail end and at the feed end, what is the difference? All the inputs, once the readings are taken and recorded and analyzed, definitely this can be reduced to minimum half the values.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Srinivasan, kindly proceed with your question.
Hello.
Yes, please proceed.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
We are purchasing 5 kilowatt to up to 5 kilowatt to 18.5 kilowatt IE3 motors. but savings only up to 7.5 kilowatt. But above capacity not saving. Please give suggestion. Immediately
Sir,
supply.
you do, yeah, that is the changing from IE2 motor or IE1 motor to IE3 motor, it is not only for energy saving, automatically the motor RPM, the old motors, IE1 motors, it was giving a 4-pole motor was giving only 1450 RPM only. The IE3 motor gives straight away gives 1475 to 1480 RPM depending on the size of the motor. So your output of the motor increases, automatically the power also increases. That is one problem to be attended to. And once that is made for the same given output power, if the input will be definitely be reduced on a IE3 motor. This is what we have to see, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Sorry, sir, you had something else to ask? Mr. Srinivasagam? Okay, so moving on to another question, Mr. Ulas has, with the increasing energy cost, motors shall no longer be treated as capex, but spares and burnt motors must be replaced for energy efficiency. Okay, thank you for the suggestion, sir. That's very right. Thank you. So then moving on to the next question from Mr. Giridhar. So putting dryer to common line or individual line, sir, CFM, how much to be put? So that's the question from Mr. Giridhar. So you want more clarity on the question, sir?
Yeah, I got the point. If you have a battery of compressors, let us say 3 or 4 compressors, the old school of thought is each compressor is given a dryer and it is operated. It is like that operating small HP motors. Instead of that, go for a higher HP. Instead of 2, 3, 5 HP motors, 4 numbers, they can go for one single 20 HP motor. It is like that. If you are able to maximize the size of the dryer, almost 50% or 100% of the compressor capacity, definitely this will help to reduce the pressure drop across the dryer, or as well this will try to do the refrigeration drying in an excellent way, where the input temperature will be totally be reduced by another 5 to 7 degrees, and you can see the excellent working of dryer if its size is big, made big to the match to the compressor requirements.
Thank you, sir. And there's another question from Mr. Raghavendra. So how to reduce purge air loss in desiccant dryer? It's around 15%.
I agree with you, Mr. Raghavendra. The purge air loss, see, normally people are putting a timer and they are operating it. Instead of putting a timer, if you go for a level sensing drive, level sensing this drain, the condensate drain, the flow type or the electronic level sensing drain, that will maintain that it will remove the water only, it will not purge the air. That is this timer based this drain valves is based now, and it is obsolete, getting obsolete now. Only the cost is less, but instead of a timer based valve, it is better to go for a electronic level sensing drain valve. It is always better, especially on the air receivers and other areas. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think those were all the questions. Thank you so much. I think there's one last question from Mr. Sivabhaskaran. Like to proceed with your question, sir?
Yeah, I think the question was wrongly understood. It is about purge loss across a heatless dryer, I think, and not auto drain valve. Purge loss will be always 10 to 12% for a heatless dryer, for desiccant dryers. That cannot be controlled too much. Sir was, giving an answer for auto drain trap, not purge loss.
Sure. Thank you for the clarification, sir. So I think with that, we conclude the Q&A session. Thanks, members, for all your inquisitiveness and asking the right kind of questions.
Shravan, I have one question.
Yeah, Murugesh, sir, please proceed.
Ashok, sir.
Yes, sir.
Is it possible to change the component change in the equipment from time based to condition based? Is it possible, sir?
Definitely.
Because every OEM, they are recommending time based only.
I agree, sir. The problem is OEM is producing thousands of machines. So as a general, this one recommendations he gives every 3,000 hours he replace, but it is not like that. We have to tailor make, that is the ready-made solution given, recommendation given by the OEM, that we have to tailor suit to ourselves, so that we are able to monitor it and we are seeing that the operation is not there and the loading is not there. So based on the time based, if the filter is not at all getting choked, then we can replace the filter maybe for a later time. Once the choking level has seen or the delta P has gone more, we can replace it. The trend has been set in all the MNCs and all the engineering sector industries also. Based on the monitoring only, they started replacing many of the inline filters, especially on the equipments and in the pipings. Thank you, sir.
So condition-based component change is very much possible if we have a very rigorous monitoring system in place, isn't it, sir?
Exactly, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. That's it.
Thank you, Murugesh. Sir, do you have any more questions, sir?
That's it.
Okay, sure. Thank you all members for participating in the Q&A session, and thank you Ashok sir for your fantastic responses, and Bhaskaran sir for supporting us as well. So members, we will post the feedback link again on the chat window. It is very crucial for us to get your feedback to ensure we identify the right kind of topics and add value to your knowledge gaining journey. So kindly fill in the feedback form so that we will be planning the sessions accordingly. So with that, Ashok sir, over to you for your closing comments, and then I request to Murugeshan sir for his vote of thanks. Ashok sir, your closing comments,
Yes,
please.
In fact, I should say a big thanks to our Tech Experts initiative, because this is not addressed by many of the industries, and you have taken the timely initiative now, because the industry, once it thinks of energy audit, means what all the preparations has to be done. You have rightly mentioned this, and this is the right time that the preparation is needed by the industry, that industry has to make themselves ready for the energy audit. And I should say the selection of the topic and the utility of the topic for the industry participants. This is the fulcrum or the crux of the issue, and you have really addressed this, and it is sincere thanks to our Murugesan sir and team that this is more important now for the industry. This is the steps to taken to for the preparation steps is vital. It was a gap. There was a gap was there. It's a gray area. It was not addressed to. You have addressed the gray area very vitally, and we have addressed to it today now. Thanks to for the session today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks for the fantastic session and your responses to all the questions that participants had. Members, if you have any more questions as well, you can fill in the feedback form with the request to get in touch with our keynote presenter. So with that, over to you, Murugeshan sir, for the vote of thanks. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone again. Ashok sir, it was a fantastic presentation as well as the fantastic delivery also, the flow and the content, the richness of the content and everything. It was fantastic. I know that you are very, very professional in preparing all this PPT in terms of energy audit. But I never expected that even for this kind of topic, you can able to give this sort of fantastic presentation. Wonderful, sir, wonderful. And you answered all the questions raised by all of our participants today in a very, very subtle as well as a very, very crispy manner. Thank you very much for your time as well as effort to make this today's session a wonderful one. Thank you very much, sir. And I'm sure that we can make much more topics which can be bridge the gap between what is available right now and what is required in terms of energy. Thank you very much, sir. Thanks to Shravan and Nagaraj sir also for your time and effort to make this presentation as well as this event a very, very successful one. Thank you all the participants for your participation today and asking the very, very right question to our presenter. Thank you all. Over to you, Shravan.